Welcome everyone back to weekly weather updates, and in today's video we're going to have a look at the latest from the live radar for the weather warnings, as we have got yellow rain warnings issued across southern England, as we are going to see a channel low moving through tomorrow, which is going to give washout conditions for many in southern England. It is going to be arriving through the afternoon and lasting all the way into Monday. We could see a few tens of millimetres in places. Still some uncertainty on the northwards extent of the precipitation, but that will be something that we have a look at on the latest UKV. As we head into next week, it is initially starting pretty chilly, but we are going to be seeing temperatures trend back towards average to above average by the middle of the week. And as we'll see from the longer range charts, we have got quite a bit of discrepancy. We were seeing high pressure building in on some of the runs yesterday, but it looks like that's moved away a little bit from some of the operational outputs, with lower pressure and maybe even more north or northwesterly winds coming back in. The GFS even producing quite a big cold snap towards the end of its run, but I must say it's got very little support at this stage. But chillier, unsettled conditions still looking fairly favourable as we head into early March. So do remember, if you enjoy my videos, which do like and subscribe, and remember to follow me on Twitter as well, the link's in the description. Now, if you start on the live radar, you can see there are showers around today, but nowhere near as extensive as we saw yesterday, nowhere near as intense as well. There is a little bit of a disturbance across the southeast, which is giving some more persistent and prolonged areas of rain, but it is now starting to clear out into the North Sea and the Channel back into Europe, and we should see a drier evening here. Elsewhere, still seeing some heavier showers around, but as said, not quite as heavy, but still seeing a little bit of winteriness mixing in with these, as we have got that polar maritime air still over the top of us. Temperatures this afternoon, you can see widely around average for the time of year. So blues and light yellows, i.e. mid to high single digits, a bit chillier further northwards, but this is sort of a cold pattern compared to what we've had recently, but actually climatologically this is near enough average, which is wintry showers and stuff like that. That should be what we see in February, but we've had a pretty incredibly mild spell, persistently mild over the course of the last couple of weeks. But into tomorrow, we are going to see heavy rain return, and as you can see on the latest weather warnings, we've got 2 rain warnings. Now, they are primarily issued for the far southern areas, but further north than this, we could see heavy rain. The likelihood is just lower because of the uncertainty within the track of the channel low. Got this first rain warning issued for much of southwest England from 6 a.m. until 6 p.m, and again, widely 15 to 25 millimetres, maybe as much as 40 millimetres. And again, those amounts in isolation are not ridiculous, but it's because it's so saturated it could cause issues. And then further eastwards for much of southeast England, spreading into parts of London from 3 p.m. until 9 a.m, you can see persistent rain, perhaps even some flooding. Again, the same totals expected in here, and again, falling onto saturated ground could cause issues. You can see though that this warning is the afternoon into Monday. The warning further westwards is through tomorrow morning into the afternoon. So you can see the disruption is transitioning from westwards to eastwards as the channel low does progress through. Now, on the latest UKV, we can see that this in detail. Throughout the rest of today, that little disturbance in the southeast should slowly clear through the evening, leaving behind fairly dry conditions for all, and we could see it again, another overnight frost tonight in many areas. But into tomorrow, that low approaching from the southwest, initially giving some very heavy rain across the southwest, and then progressing further eastwards, giving very heavy rain through much of Sunday afternoon into the evening. Again, massive uncertainty on the northern extent of this low, but at this stage we are still expecting to see rain as far northwards as perhaps even the Midlands, just the most disruptive rain further southwards. This system continues to progress eastwards and lingers into the southeast all the way into Monday morning for eventually clearing. We see cooler air, but drier air wrapping in back behind it. As we head into Tuesday, we see another weather front approaching, but it does lose its intensity as it progresses south and eastwards, and you generally see more unsettled conditions coming back in from the west by Wednesday and Thursday, as we are starting to see milder conditions pushing back in, and of course that will mean the rain is even heavier and more widespread with those warmer sectors. You can see that on the upper air temperatures, big warmer sector moving in through Wednesday into Thursday, but generally at the next sort of 3 or 4 days, we do see chillier, below average air masses dominating before, as I said, that milder air does push back in. As we head into tomorrow, we've got that channel low moving in. If we have a look at the pressure, you can see it actually distinctly here on the mean sea level pressure, progressing all the way into northern France. Again, slightly further northwards, we could see that rain even more widespread. This sort of pattern could be an absolute snowmaker if we had those upper air temperatures a few degrees colder, but pretty typical when the upper air temperatures are not quite there, the low is in perfect place for a widespread snow event. But previously this winter, whenever we have had that cold air in place, all the lows that look like they could be a channel low progress much further south. It's pretty typical, but that's what's happened in this case. Along with that low, we could see some very strong winds progressing, especially across southwest England as this system wraps through. A couple of days ago, we thought it could be even more intense than this, but because the positioning of the low has slowly trended slightly further southwards, and those strongest winds are on the western edge of the low, it means really only the far southwest of England are going to be affected. But here could see 50, 60 mile per hour winds. I'm surprised we haven't got a yellow warning issued for the far coastal areas, but that could be something we see put in force later today. The temperatures over the coming days, you can see through this afternoon, generally around average, or maybe even below average in a few spots, around that 5 to 8 degree mark. Overnight, again, potentially a widespread frost, especially further northwards, further southwards, all dependent on cloud amounts. And then as we progress into Sunday, a pretty chilly day again, 4 to 8 degrees cooler, but we've got that rain further southwards, feeling colder than what these temperatures are showing. Elsewhere, still a little bit chilly. As we head into Monday, again, a frost developing in some areas, again, dependent on cloud amounts. And then as we head into Monday afternoon, again, very similar temperatures, 5 to 8 degrees. Into Tuesday, an even more widespread frost with clearer skies developing, and Tuesday afternoon, still pretty chilly indeed, 4 to 8 degrees. But into Wednesday and Thursday, still chilly initially on Wednesday, but by the afternoon temperatures starting to nudge up into double digits for the far south, and it'll be more widespread double digits as we head into Thursday as those westerly winds return, but with much milder upper air temperatures. Now, if you look at the latest GFS to see what that is in store over the course of the next couple of weeks, you can see generally a northwest-southeast alignment of the jet stream. That's why it's below average temperatures at the moment. That channel low progresses through, and then we see westerly winds returning, more of a flat westerly, and that's why it's turning milder. However, doesn't last all too long, and the GFS actually has more of a polar maritime blast returning again by the first few days of March, and again westerlies returning straight after that. But then right toward the end of this run, we actually start to see some pretty chilly northerly winds developing. Again, it's more of a northerly snap, it's nothing prolonged, but you can see the upper air temperatures going pretty cold indeed, the -10 isotherm moving in for some in the north. Again, that's not too unexpected. We do see quite a few northerly winds in March and April. It's sort of what happens climatologically as we see the stratosphere weaken. It allows more of an amplified jet stream. So it's pretty typical to see a few northerly or easterly blasts through the early spring time. So it wouldn't be too out in the ordinary to see this, and it's just one to watch, as again, wouldn't be too severe, wouldn't have any widespread consequences, simply because it isn't incredibly cold. It's not like -15 at upper air temperatures like we see with the beast from the east pattern, for example, but it would be cold enough to produce some snow in places and to produce potentially just some disruption if we did see some prolonged precipitation associated with this as well. Again, one to watch. But it is a complete contrast to what we saw yesterday, where we saw high pressure blocking returning, not producing anything cold, but producing something potentially a little bit drier with low pressure in the Bay of Biscay. That's completely gone from this latest GFS output. If you look at the GEM, very similar over the coming days. Again, that channel low moving through, westerly winds returning, and then another northwesterly blast of polar maritime air. You can see it does start to hint that low towards the Bay of Biscay with high pressure towards Scandinavia, but up towards day 10, doesn't look like that high is having much luck. Lows are gathering in the Atlantic, ready to blast through, and yeah, could go really quite horrible and stormy there into early March. Very similar to what the GEM was showing yesterday. It wasn't showing this high anywhere near as strong, but was showing these big low stratospheric polar vortex in the North Atlantic. So perhaps that could be something that is cropping up on models over the coming days and could be something that persists into early March. Now, if you look at the latest ECMWF, again, similar over the coming days with this northwesterly wind, westerlies return, and then again another low dropping into the Bay of Biscay. Again, fairly similar to yesterday with that bit of a Bay of Biscay channel low combination there with easterly winds developing. But it doesn't continue like that for long toward day 10, with that high pressure still up towards Scandinavia, but not really anywhere near Iceland or Greenland, and that means the lows stay intact, and it goes really quite horrible and stormy. And the thing is, with that high towards Scandinavia, it could really halt the speed of these lows coming in off the Atlantic. Yes, it could actually take some of the intensity out of them, but it would prolong weather front, slow it down, and means we'd see rainfall with a strong jet stream move through in a couple of hours could last 6 to 12 hours with this sort of pattern, with very slow moving weather fronts coming up against that block. You can see cold air wrapping into this low, so again it's just going to continue intensifying, and yeah, it could be really quite horrible as we progress into the early March period if this comes off, again similar to the GEM. Still not too much consistency across different days here from the runs. We are still seeing this fairly similar pattern of low pressure trying to come off the Atlantic, high pressure trying to make a return, and in the end, the UK is kind of sandwiched in between, keeping unsettled, cool conditions. So if you do now have a look at the latest ensembles, you can see generally over the next week we're out in and around average, slightly above, slightly below, and staying very unsettled. Beyond that, into early March, generally still around average, maybe slightly more above average, but just a few anomalous runs there, like the operational run. It does look like the ensembles, though, do definitely favour some more high pressure building in, which is not like what we've just seen from the operational runs. So a little bit of a discrepancy there, and you can see the sea level pressure is on a rise in the longer term, but still some uncertainty there with some lower pressure runs. 2 meter temperatures, as I've continued to say over the past few days, are continuing to look upwards. Again, that is typical for the time of year. As we do progress into spring and eventually towards summer, it's expected temperatures slowly rise. So yeah, looking pretty decent if you are looking forward to something a little bit milder, warmer. Sometimes we can see some big dips as we see colder patterns develop, but here looking like a pretty strong trajectory in towards spring conditions. And if you do compare to the ECMWF ensembles, again fairly similar, in and around average over the next couple of weeks. Still some high pressure looking more likely in the longer term from the ensembles here, but definitely knowing it as favoured as perhaps yesterday, or even the GFS ensemble members are showing some more lower pressure runs, especially through early March, which does give the indication that even though high pressure is signaled to build back in, it is getting delayed a little bit every time these runs get done. So we will just have to see how it does develop, but for the sort of short to medium term, it is looking pretty cool and pretty unsettled, and generally pretty horrible as we do progress into early March. We've got lots more areas of rain around. Hopefully we see some high pressure build in, but the cool, unsettled weather looks to continue for the time being. Perhaps hope in the longer term something a little bit milder, which is typical for March, of course, heading into spring, but hopefully something a bit drier as well, developing as well. So anyway, thanks for watching. Hope you enjoyed. Subscribe if you're new, and I'll see you again for another video soon.